Hi, MotoAmerica fans. Welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. We are 1 week away from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. We are 1 week after going to Ridge Motorsports Park. And let me first start by saying I'm joined by our communications manager, Paul Carruthers. And we also have the pleasure of having Manny Segura on, who is a little bit more, not quite West Coast, but West side of the country like you, Paul. So
and he's in the hot part.
Oh my God, I guess so. And he races in Stock 1000 and Superbike Cup for Red Lobo Racing on a GSXR 1000. And Manny, you have been with us since 2018. You've been around for a while.
Yeah. I actually started doing some of the select rounds in 2017, mostly the West Coast stuff. But that was getting my feet wet in just Stock 1000. And then, 2018 is when I started doing, I guess it was still regional rounds. And then 2019, I did the full Stock 1000 season. So that was
and you've raced with us when we've gone to Utah a couple times. I mean, that's got to be not too far for you. You're used to that track a little bit. Do you also race in that, what, I don't know what they call that. I forget, mountain racing,
King
whatever it is.
King of the Mountain stuff. No, I don't. A lot of the guys I race with in Chuckwalla Valley, they go there quite a bit, but it doesn't quite work out for my logistics in the off season because I've got to build up. I've got to work. My dad and I own an auto detailing company that we've owned since 2007, and so I've got to still be here hitting it pretty hard in order to make what we need to get through these seasons, because especially this year we jumped to Superbike, and it's quite a commitment. So even going to Stock 1000, we all know it's expensive. So we've got to work a lot.
How far are you from Chuckwalla?
I'm about 3.5 hours.
Oh, okay. So it's like almost the same as from where I am.
Yep.
Kind of. Yeah, we might be a little bit closer, but well, that's good. You've got a decent track that close.
Yeah, and now we've got a Tessa Podium Club, so that one CRA comes and Asthma comes there, so it gives me a place to test. It's a good little configuration. The Yamaha boys, the Attack boys did some testing there, and so that we have some good options for all of that stuff, and definitely in the good weather as well. So we don't have to worry about it snowing and raining all the time in the winter.
You know, looking at one of the first things I always do is I look at the point standings, right? So like, who is this Manny Segura guy? But upon looking at those point standings, you know, we tend to have guests that are like at the top, right? And they're talking about this and that. This is a whole different ball game, because when I looked, I couldn't believe, like, last year, only 34 riders scored points in the championship. And that's 64 guys made some attempt at scoring championship points. So it really shows like how difficult it is for somebody like you that's fighting in that area of getting points or don't getting points. Is that kind of the story of your racing at this point?
Yeah, honestly, like scoring points obviously is a big deal, right? But for me to get, you know, in the top 15, I've been in the top 10, but we know now, like, this is super competitive stuff. All the way down to 20th we're fighting tooth and nail for any position. So especially this year and last year, I would say for sure. Before that, it was a little bit more spaced out. You had maybe top 10 that were fighting. I'd say 2018, 2019, top 10 were, you know, in their own group. And then everybody else, it was kind of spaced out with the regional guys. And then some guys would show up just regionally, right? So you don't see them everywhere. But if you made an attempt at the full season, you'd probably get a point in there from round to round. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're fighting for it now. And I know I like this year, I've already had 3 crashes in 3 rounds, 4 crashes in 4 rounds. Atlanta was the only one that I haven't. And for, you know, obviously small team, small budget, all that stuff. So just rebuilding the bike, getting to the rounds, all that stuff. Like it's a massive output of energy in order just to be on the grid and qualify. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I'm doing all the wrenching, I'm doing all the driving, all of that. and on the weekends as well. And then getting on track and fighting with these guys. I mean, everybody's a good rider. Everybody's going to fight you. Nobody's going to give you an inch. So yeah, that's kind of an understatement to say that. We get the big teams, and we get like all the things they have to put into it, and they should be up there. They're spending 20 times what I am in a season. So yeah, for me to be there is an accomplishment in itself.
So when you crash the bike, I mean, in addition to the cost of repairing it, you're actually hands-on trying to repair that thing for the next session or the next race.
Yeah. So to give you a great example, this last, let's say Brainerd, I had Sunday, the stock race. Saturday was kind of a mess. We had some issues with the bike, but we finished the races, but not the results we wanted. I don't think they were in the points. It was just outside the points. And then Sunday had real pace in the morning. We found something that worked. I felt confident, so I went after it in the stock race. And second lap, set the fastest sector I'd had through sector 1. And sector 1 at Brainerd is really fast. And coming into turn 2, just a little bit too much and lost it. It flipped over on its side. The front end of the bike was smashed. The tail end of the back was smashed. The bike was smashed. So I got it back to the pits, and it was literally everybody that had any time to come and help. It ended up being Ty Bankford, his wife, Rainey, my dad, my sister. 3 hours straight, we were working on the bike just to get it ready. And we made it out with 2 minutes left before I didn't get out on the media grid. We went out 2 minutes at the back of the grid to start the Superbike race, and I finished it. Wow. So that there though, like we didn't barely have the spare parts to do it, but we had everything. And then after that, of course, I have to fly to Minnesota a week ahead of time to get back to the bike, repaint bodywork, put the decals on, get all the other mechanical things, sensors and all that stuff that we busted up. So I was there for 3 days working on the bike, getting it ready to go, and then driving to Seattle. So it's a lot of time, and it's all, mostly me, but I have help. Don't get me wrong. My sister is a big help. My dad is a big help. But yeah, we're as small as it gets.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit, Manny. That's kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to get you on is you represent, I don't know if it's a majority, but it's a good part of what MotoAmerica is all about. And, this idea of there's a community there. I mean, you mentioned Tyler Bankford. He races for another team. He's with Bryce Prince Racing, I believe. These guys help you, but also your pit box happened to be right outside the window from the media center. So at Ridge. So I was watching you guys, and I could see you go out, and I see your sister Drea is on the stopwatch, and your dad is kind of watching the monitor. And I'm like, man, he only has two crew members, and they're both his family. So this idea about Tyler Bankford helping you and everything, speak to that, if you would, about what MotoAmerica is all about with the camaraderie, not only within your team and the family atmosphere, but the fact that you have a greater family who are competitors of yours, but they help you and you help them. So talk about that, if you would.
Yeah, and that kind of comes just in motorcycling all in all, right? I've known these guys for years, going to Chuckwalla and doing some of the West Coast when Wira was still kind of a thing on the West Coast. That's where I got to know Rainey and Ty and Bill. Bill's another guy that was helping out. Lugnut's another guy. Like all those guys, if we have time, we're going to help each other. I'm going to beat him up on the track, and then if he crashes his bike, I'm going to go scout the paddock for parts and get whatever he needs. If I have the time to do that, I'm definitely going to do it. If I don't have the time, I'm going to get my sister and my dad to go do it, because that's what we've always done for each other. It does have it has a personal aspect to it. I really like those guys. I love those guys, and they know that. And I think it's just reciprocated always. I want them out on the grid because then I can beat up on them there.
You have many layers, like all the riders do, and I want to get into that a little bit. I mean, we'll jump around somewhat. I mean, obviously we want to talk about your racing, but one of the things that fascinates me about you is, I know that there are people in our paddock that love basketball. I know some of them play basketball. Jake Lewis and Raj Hayden play, and they love Kentucky. But I don't know of anybody other than you that actually played Division I college basketball for New Mexico State. And you're 6'1", so you were obviously a guard, point guard. Is that what your position was?
I was more a combo guard, so I was a small shooting guard. I was labeled 6'1". I'm not 6'1". I'm 5'11" and 3'8". So yeah, so that's what you do in basketball. You need to put as much size on the sheet as you can. But yeah, I'm always the small guy, always have been. But yeah, I competed, and it was a pretty high level for me, and I tired myself out of that with. I mean, it's very similar. You get in the sharp end of things, and it gets cutthroat pretty quick. So I did it for a long time, into my 30s, and I was good when I left it. But as soon as I left that, I came right to motorcycling. I had to race somewhere. I thought it was going to be cars. And
so they're the Lobos, right?
New Mexico State's the Aggies. The Lobos.
Okay.
Are New Mexico. That's where I wanted to go. That's where my dad's from. And but at the time I was coming out of high school, they weren't very good, and I didn't get along with the coaching staff there, so I chose New Mexico State, and rightfully so for the first year. After that, they had the budget to go after good players and all that.
Yeah, Paul, I did the same exact thing, and it was thrown off by the fact that his team is called Red Lobo Racing, so it's kind of made me think the same thing. And it's funny. So Manny, were you in high school? Were you recruited, and did you have a scholarship, Division I scholarship to state to go there?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was actually a local boy at that time, because I was born in Albuquerque, and then my family moved to Phoenix since I was 6. So I had an opportunity to go back there for 1 year of high school, and I did it. And I had offers from both, but I chose New Mexico State just because it was a little bit more competitive of a school at the time.
Did you play AAU and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, that was when that stuff was big, and we traveled everywhere. I played against everybody. Anybody can think of from my class would have been TJ Ford, Carlos Hurt, David Lee, Chris Quinn from the Miami Heat. All those guys, I've played those guys for years, and all cool. Really good ball players.
Yeah, that's incredible. And just the fact that you did that. But I mean, I know some NBA guys and some NFL guys they do like bikes. It seems like we get that from Alex Arango. There's a lot of celebrities that buy purchase from his dealership, but the transition into actually racing, how did that happen? I mean, you must have, did you ride motorcycles when you were in college?
No, I didn't. I rode them when I was a kid a little bit, just in the dirt. I had a couple of friends that had places up north in northern Arizona, and we just ride, little bikes, 50cc, maybe 125cc in the woods. That was the most riding I did up until 2000. I don't know. It would have been probably 2005 or 6. And I knew I wanted to race cars. I wanted to race like Atlantic Series or something like that. And there was no money for it. So I went and bought myself a motorcycle, Daytona 675 from the dealership right here in Scottsdale at the time, and just started riding it on the street. And I took it, the mountain roads up north with some friends. The first time I went into a 25-mile-an-hour corner on the mountains, and I just grabbed all the rear brake because I wasn't slowing down, and high-sided myself into the gutter. Got lucky, didn't get hurt or anything, but bashed myself up a little bit. And I said, after that, I need to learn how to ride this thing all the way, because this is not safe, and I need to learn how to extract everything I can, because I know that can be done. I just didn't know how to do it at the time. So then it was track days, and then straight to racing within a couple of years.
But you got that helmet on, and you immediately loved it, obviously, because even though you got hurt, sometimes that'll change, or didn't get hurt, but ended up in the ditch. That'll change somebody's opinion sometimes, but you still loved it no matter what, huh?
My dad loved drag racing as a young man. And then that kind of evolved into, we loved Indy cars when I was a young guy, and he was my, 40-year-old dad, maybe younger than that, probably in his 30s. He was watching IndyCar because we had a local hero from Albuquerque, Al Unser Jr. and the Unser family.
Oh yeah.
And so we followed those guys all over, watching them race. And you go to a race as a young kid, and it's in you from that point. Like, you see it on TV as one thing, but you go to a race and you immerse yourself in the cars and the teams, and then seeing them once they're even a Friday practice. Like, you don't know what it's like until you see it. and feel it, right? The engines, the crowds, everything. So yeah, it was in me since I was a small kid, and I knew I wanted to get into racing somewhere. Once basketball was done, I knew that was going to happen in some capacity.
So how old were you when you had your first motorcycle race?
I was already 27 years old.
Yeah,
26 years old.
That's crazy, because some of these guys you're racing have been doing it since they're 5.
Yeah, exactly right. And I was racing against those guys like Jay Newton and Ort. Braden Ort.
Braden Ort, yeah.
We love Braden.
Like this, like we were rookie experts in the CMRA in Texas together. Like that kid was amazing. He was 15 years old, and him and I were racing, like neck and neck, but he was just learning. It was crazy to race against such a young, talented kid like that. But that's what taught me. And then you get to see the Eddie Thorntons and Derek Wagner, all these guys. They're just so talented coming out of the CMRA. And these are the guys I idolized when I was coming through at 27, 28 years old. Seeing them, what they could do on a bike was just alien to me at the time.
There's kind of been a bit of a shift with a lot of guys racing at Chuckwalla in the winter, right? I mean, that's something. I mean, you see some pretty big names out there.
Yeah, now that's normal there. But at the time, I didn't even know about Chuckwalla. I was living in Austin, and the CMRA was, I'll say it was one of the more competitive that I've raced in at the time, right? And then you go to Chuckwalla, and it's evolved to this, just all the pros go and train there and test and, make a living in the off season there. So yeah, you see everybody, but it wasn't that when I started in the CMRA. Right. There was a handful of guys. That was it.
Manny, did you ever know, and if you didn't know, I'm sure you know of Dane Westby when he was in CMR. You probably have heard about his whole
life. He was. Yep.
Yeah. He was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say another guy that I watched religiously. I got to see him a little bit in the CMRA when he would just test stuff. But yeah, I knew the people that mentored me were very involved in his stuff. So yeah, of course I knew Dane and of him.
Yeah. So you must know Walter Walker, who is under race control, and he's heavily involved, and his son, right? His son races.
Yeah. Trey. Yep. All those guys. They've helped a bunch. There's not a single one of them that haven't had a hand in my progression here, for sure.
Paul touched on it a little bit with the points, and you obviously want to score points. That's something that's a thing of distinction for you. But when you're at a round, are you looking at trying to always just get your lap times better as the weekend rolls around? Do you have a position that you're looking for, or do you just see what happens? How does it? Do you have goals?
Yeah, no, I compete to a fault. So I'm going after blood for sure. And I don't mean that to be intimidating or anything. That's just how I compete, how I've always competed. I don't care who it is. I want to beat who's ever in front of me.
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like I said, these guys, a lot of them have a lot more experience from a younger age, but I know the potential's there, but the team aspect and the finances and all that stuff is still kind of a limiting factor. And for sure, like my experience is a limiting factor as well. But this year has been really good for track time on track with these guys. You learn really fast as long as you have the capacity and the energy to do it, to absorb it. There's no experience like that. You have to be on track with the best there is.
I'll tell you, I was going to ask you to tell us some things that relate to basketball with riding a motorcycle. I think you hit one on the head right there with competitiveness, but I'm sure hand-eye coordination is important there. Are there some other skills that you've got from basketball that can relate to motorcycle road racing?
Yeah, for sure. The training part of it, that's been a part of my life since I was a kid. The discipline there, it wasn't really taught to me. I had to learn to do it because I was already the small guy. So when you're competing against these big, naturally gifted, super athletic bodies, you have to figure out a way, both in your mind and in your body, to be able to sustain, a whole season with these people. And so that training part of it is a big part. You got to change your brain a little bit but it's still the same principles of I am not going to let somebody beat me that I know I'm better than. And I'm also not going to let anybody get away. If I can help it and I can train a little harder, or I can do something for my body and my mind to connect where I'm not getting fatigued, arm pump, all that stuff. Like all of that I've kind of dealt with my whole life. So arm pump, maybe not the way that we deal with it now, but you have injuries that you've got to nurse through a season. And so all of that is a very big part of my life, has been. So I'll say that's probably the biggest thing, is being able to take care of the mind and the body for an entire season, and then continue to do it in the off season. There's no time to take a rest on it. You've got to be disciplined all the time.
That's really good. So I want to ask you about your detailing company. Well, two things I want to ask you about. Let's talk a little bit about Ducati Rahal Moto, because you were an Al Unser fan, so I know you know about Bobby and obviously sure. Graham. Graham was in our paddock. Have you talked to him yet? And also, I want to talk to you about the fact that they're sponsored by Expel, who I'm sure may be a brand that you work with when you detail. Tell us about all that, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So no, I haven't had the chance to meet Graham. I wish I would have had the time, but you see what my days are like when we're in the paddock. So it is wrenching, moving around the paddock. I don't have a lot of extra time. I wish I did. I'll make sure that's a point, because they're for sure, like, they were rivals, they were friends, I've never met his dad. I would love to. But yeah, that's a big part of the foundation of why I'm here, is watching those guys. So that's a good point. And yes, I will make a point. I'll make a point to go and at least introduce myself. The second part of that was
the detailing business, your detailing business, and Expel and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to have a sponsor like that. That's for sure. But yeah, we use that stuff quite a bit. That's kind of the self-healing PPF that you're going to see on a lot of exotics and collectors' cars and things like that, just to protect them from the road. So that's a high level part of the detailing after you do the paint corrections and the ceramic coatings and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's really good. It's the top PPF if you're going to use any, use Expel.
And so tell us about your business. You're obviously a motorhead, so that's why you love racing, love motorcycle racing, and love cars enough to be doing detailing as your job. So, I think I asked you this in the paddock, man, and I think I remember your answer, but are you obsessive compulsive?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. My dad taught it to us well, and it hasn't left us anytime soon. So yeah, he was the obsessive compulsive, still is. But it's kind of moved into another level for him. He's much more calm in his older years. And now I'm the one that's obsessing over every little detail in the house and in the cars and everything else. So it's a lot of energy to put out, for sure, but it earns me a good living, and for my family as well. And there's nobody, the one thing you can always say is there's nobody that's going to look at a car like I'm going to. If they think they're picky, they're not. They don't know what it's like until you stare at a panel for hours polishing it to get it perfect.
Wow.
So so that's all the stuff that has made it possible to do all this stuff, for sure. Being a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I knew we were kindred spirits, because I'm that way too, and that's how I am about proofreading. I mean, you can probably understand that. I will look at something and I'll find something. You'll find an imperfection pretty quickly, I'm sure, but you stare at it and you just want to get it right. You want to change it. You want to improve on it. And that's a big part of it. Detailing has really become, gosh, it's an art and a science now. It seems like a lot more people are doing it. And there's a guy near here, Esoteric, who has schools that you can go to in New Albany, Ohio. He's sort of, made an industry out of it himself a little bit. Sells his own branded stuff now, but you're always using like a polisher and paint correction. Now tell us this. I got to ask you this. A car coming right out of the showroom really needs to be corrected, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, they have stuff all over them, from transport, from incorrect washing. The bad thing about dealerships is they don't know the first thing about taking care of paint, and they surely don't know how to do a good paint job. So you have to correct all of that stuff. And then it is coming out of you know, not so much the showroom, but coming out of the OEM booth, if you're dealing with German paints, they're really flat, they're really good. But if you're dealing with American made stuff, there's a lot of orange peel, there's a lot of micro scratches. So yeah, you've got to polish the heck out of a lot of those things, and differently too. It's not the same. It's not the same for, say, a German car versus like an American made car. They are getting better though. I'll say that.
Yeah, I've heard the art and science of paint has changed all the time with the industry. But I've heard that even cars, like high end cars that come from the factory, a lot of times need to be corrected, from what I understand.
Oh, they do too. They do too, but they're just much flatter, and there's less of a refraction off of the paint because the paint's a lot more flat. You don't have a lot. The prep is better, so you don't have the orange peel underneath the paint. So it's easier to correct that kind of stuff. But if you really want them to look nice, you still end up spending 7-8 hours of just correction before you seal it up with anything.
Yeah. And the thing, Paul, I love about Manny's bikes, I'm partial to the color red anyway, but I love red bikes, but your bike is always perfect.
I thought you were colorblind.
Well, red's my favorite color. I think it's red.
If you had one, it would be red.
Yeah, if it is, yeah.
He knows he likes it. That's all he knows.
Right. Yeah,
he doesn't know why. You can't see it.
But is there any reason you're 222?
Yeah. So when I first started, my number last year was 20, and my number is 2. In basketball, it was 2.
Oh, yeah.
And then coming to racing, I started out as 222 in CMRA. Just because 20 wasn't available, 21 wasn't available, 2 wasn't available. So I had to go with the 3-digit. And then when I went to my first year of MotoAmerica, that was my number as well, as 222. So I 20 wasn't available. CJ got that one for the Super Sport this year.
Right,
and so I went back to the old school. I even called him for it. I was like, dude, you want to switch up? And he was like, nah, we're good.
So in college basketball, is it like Little League baseball where number 2 is like a small guy and then a bigger guy's 4 and a bigger guy's 6?
Exactly right. Yeah, especially when we were coming out, like it was still like small guys get small numbers, big guys get big numbers. Now you can wear whatever you want.
Right.
But
yeah.
You can even wear 9s in basketball now. You don't have to wear it had to be what the official could put up on one hand, right?
Right.
Now they wear whatever. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. I never realized that. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good.
Especially like in high school ball, like it's only, 5 is the high number. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 50 is 55 was the highest number.
I had no idea. I did not know that. No. So we're coming up on WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It's a little bit more in your neck of the woods. I assume you really like that track. Everybody else does. How do you feel about going there?
Yeah. I've come to like it. I've only been there. Yeah, I've only been there a handful of times. It's obviously challenging. It's physical. But yeah, you don't get much better than that. If you're looking to compete in front of those fans at that time of year with these guys, yeah, you got to be A game for sure.
Yeah. And I think, I'm going to put myself on the spot, Manny, but Paul might know this. Okay, you have 5 rounds on the season in Stock 1000. This will be your 4th round at Laguna Seca. Is your final round at COTA? Is that right?
No, because I'm doing Superbike Cup as well. So
okay.
I'll do Mid Ohio. I'll do COTA.
Okay.
I'll do Jersey as well.
Okay, but Stock 1000, you guys are
we're
which has got to be awesome for you, having been in that area, and you've been on that track before. So you must. What's your favorite track that we go to?
I think still Road America. There's nothing like it. But I will say the Ridge. This was my first time here. This last round, first time ever seeing the track on Friday morning, and that place. Once you get going, it's really fun. It's really fun. But yeah, so that might be up there after this last round. Yeah, I really liked it. I like the area as well.
Yeah, it's quite an area. It's nothing like where you live and nothing like where I live, or Paul for that matter. It's like hard to believe it's in this country. I got to ask you this. Sorry, Paul. I got a lot of questions.
Go for it. I'm good.
So Manny, forgive me for asking this, but being that I took Latin in high school, I always like to know like the roots of people's names and what it might mean. Does Segura mean anything?
It's a cactus, isn't it?
So saguaro
okay.
is
right. That's it.
Sure.
It's close to a cactus.
Yeah, it is close. It is close, and people often mistake it for that if they can't pronounce. They see it and they don't know how to pronounce it.
Right.
Segura means sure, for sure in Spanish. So that's So when you say seguro, that means I'm sure.
Okay, I have seen that. I've actually seen the O, not an A. So that's
Segura would be the feminine, and
right.
that would be I'm sure as a woman or a girl.
Gosh, I've never known anybody with the surname of Sure. That's amazing. Are there very many Seguras on this planet that you know?
There actually
he's not sure.
Yeah, I'm not. There's one thing I'm sure. I'm sure there's more Seguras. Yeah, for sure. Look in baseball, you'll see a few.
Yes.
Look in Latin America, you'll see quite a bit.
And there's a lot of Mannys in baseball too.
Yeah.
That's right, exactly. So Paul, you got anything for him before I keep going or okay?
No, you can keep going.
Let me ask you. I want to ask you about your bike a little bit, Manny. So you obviously do your own work. You're mechanically inclined, clearly. But in terms of building your engine or stuff like that, or where you source the bike, does any of it does it come from Team Hammer? Do you have a source? Do you have an engine builder that we would know of, or do you do it? How does it work?
Yeah, so everything but the engine I do. I will say my guy that is, my preference is Fuzz, Michael Castro. I love that little guy. He is a saint of sorts. He helps everybody that he can, and he's certainly done that for me. So I've been very vocal about him being that guy for me. I've had one engine built to be told this engine that's in it. It's just the stock build, obviously. But he put the suitor in there, the suitor clutch that helped a lot. There's a lot of stuff I haven't seen yet. When I talk about this is the first year I have an AIM system, so I can take data. A suitor clutch, obviously, so it's still very stock, right? But anything that I can get my hands on and we have a budget for, he's usually in that conversation to suggest like, hey, this is the direction you might want to go. So, and he's also helping me with a lot of setup during the weekend. He's employed by Top Pro, and so he's working on Max's bike, and they've been kicking butt with that thing. So, and I know he's putting in a lot of work there. So I try not to bug him when I don't have to. But if there's something that I need to get done, I'll go and ask him, or I'll text him or call him. And that guy, he does that not just for me either. He's doing that for everybody that love him the same way I do from the West Coast. So that guy doesn't deserve whatever he's being paid over there. he deserves more.
He deserves more. Right.
Yeah.
What do you think about this Top Pro racing team this year? We didn't know what to think, but we thought, man, they've got almost too many bikes. They're in the very deep end, and look what they're doing. It's incredible, right?
Yeah, Alex he's got some big balls, man. I'll say that to do what he did. I just thought he was a regional guy just to like I raced. We were kind of in the same level last year where we were racing. And then right at the end of the year, he got this little kick of, brand new Beamers, and it was immediately another level. And then even after that, to see what he's done this year. Mm-hmm. That's amazing what they did in 1 year. And I know they've got a lot of backing. They've got a lot of support from BMW. With Augustine, he's riding a bike and he's out there, putting a lot of that funding together. So it's amazing what they've been able to do so quick.
Yeah. And boy, obviously Sean Dillon Kelly, just absolutely took to it immediately. He's been great too with that team. Yep. Obviously he's kind of, lead rider by virtue of what he's doing as well as his reputation, mm-hmm. but it's probably helping those guys, Alex and Augustine too, at the same time to have to chase that carrot a little bit or see what else their teammates doing. And with that in mind, would you ever, I know you're kind of hard scrabble with what your program is. And we talk to Max Flinders about this sometimes. He absolutely covets having a teammate, how that would help him. I bet you wish you had one too, huh?
Yeah, I did this last year with Flo for Lob. So Bobby Davies
yes.
and Ben Smith. And that was based on Bobby and I's relationship. I've known him since I started racing. Literally the first year I raced, he's one of the first guys I met. So we have a long standing relationship. There's a lot of layers to that as well. We're very close. I talk to him probably 4 times a week about what's going on, if we need anything, all this stuff still. I'm obviously not with them this year, but that was definitely something I needed and I still need. But for the direction that I need to learn, the pace that I have to learn at, it's my age is probably not helping that either. So yeah, it would be great, but I understand where I am, and that's okay. I'm totally good with that. But yeah, that's something that I think would definitely help for sure. And to Flo and those guys that gave me that opportunity at the end of last year, they wanted to do it again this year. And I just thought that it was going to be a little too difficult for them to swing it. So we chose to kind of do our own thing, but still, I mean, I'm talking to those guys after every session. If there's anything I can help with, definitely picking Ben's brain and Bobby's brain. So we're still kind of a conglomerate, I guess.
That's really good that you have that. I mean, and that team is good too. Bobby's doing well, but my gosh, Benjamin Smith, he's up there on the podium and stuff against some tall order. When you see Hayden Gillim on Stock 1000 or a Superbike, but let's talk Stock 1000. Does it just blow your mind what he does?
Yeah, man. His confidence and ability it blows me away every time I see it. And when I see it on track, I mean, we'll in our practice sessions and our qualifying sessions, I'll get to see him on track where he'll come by. Just the way he can get around people, the confidence, it's close proximity, I'll tell you, but it's always clean. It's always clean. And he just the play that, let's say this, the Honda is very good. It's quick. It can turn. There's things that bike does that I can't make mine do. And that's probably, speaking to his team and his ability as well. But yeah, when I see him and off track as well, at the Ridge, when I crashed in the Superbike race, I was just watching how he's picking people off in a corner that I just didn't have the confidence to do it in. Coming up the hill, I don't know the turn number, but coming up the hill, and then you have the kink, the left-hander that turns into a real tight. It's a tight, slow corner, and he's just letting it just come up the inside, so buttery smooth, cuts the line off, and he's gone. And he did it probably 5 laps in a row. And just watching that, that's what you've got to learn from. You've got to see that and be able to use it, because you can't just sit there in awe of it. Everyone can do it, but you got to build to it, right? And what he's doing is amazing for sure.
Yeah, it's something to see. Well, anybody you want to plug? Anybody you want to talk about? Your dad and mom and sister, Drea Dazelle. Is it Dazelle? Is that how she pronounces? She's married. Dalzell, sorry. And she lives in Minnesota, right?
Yeah, so she lives in St. Cloud or Sartell, but it's in that same area. Works out well for Brainerd. She ends up being my base for the middle part of the season. So MotoAmerica, Brainerd, and then leaving to the Ridge this year. And it'll kind of work out like that for Ohio. I think we'll end up going around there again. So she moved up there with her husband that she actually met down here, and it was a motorcycle thing. He had a motorcycle in the apartment complex that I was living at the time. I put a little card on it, said, "Hey, when you go ride, let me know. Let's go ride." I just saw the bike. I didn't even know the guy, and that ends up being her husband.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So bikes do their thing again. And she didn't quite have the love for it then. She definitely has the love for it now. She's all about it. She wants to be there for everything. And she's handling the emails and the orders and the travel logistics and all that stuff. So she's done a great job with it.
Yeah, shout out to her. She's team manager for sure, because she got in touch with us about your bio, which we got up on the site, and of course the podcast too. I mean, I talked to her a couple of times, so I mean, huge props to her for what she's doing for you. Is she older or younger than you?
She's a year younger. Yeah.
Oh.
So Yep.
You guys must be close then.
Yeah,
they're about a year apart.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yes, we have been for sure. And,
are there any other siblings besides the two of you?
No, just us two.
Man, she must be really proud of you then, Manny. Not only playing college ball, Division I, but also what you're doing with MotoAmerica. She must think a lot of you, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so, but I probably would say that probably builds some resentment too. So
now that I found out he fibbed about his height for basketball, I got to look at his bio and see if he says he's 5'8" for motorcycle racing.
Yeah. Oh no, it says 6'1" in our bio. Yeah, I actually think that's funny because when I went over and talked to you at Brainerd, I stood right in front of you, and now that you tell me, because I'm 5'11" and I thought we were eye to eye, but I thought, maybe I'm getting taller. I don't know.
Yeah, no. And to be clear, I did not fudge that. That's always the coaches and the teams. I never fudge that.
I love it.
I'll let you go then.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's wrap this up, and we see each other next week, I guess.
Yep.
Laguna Seca.
For sure.
It was nice having another podcast, Sean. We've been off for a couple of weeks. Yeah. Sean got sick, and I got stuck in the world's biggest traffic jam on the I-5.
It's terrible. Yeah. Yeah. We've been building up to it, Manny. We needed a couple off to get ready for you. That's what it was. So
that's what it was.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much for making it happen. And hopefully, it becomes something to where I can continue to show. I mean, you guys have done a great job getting the privateers in there, and letting the people. That's part of the fun part about this whole thing is. Our friends, our families, like we're a large majority of the grid, even though the lower half, but that brings more fans. So that's something that you guys are doing an awesome job reaching out and getting our stories out there.
Thank you
for that.
All right, awesome. Everybody have safe travels, and we'll see you all next week.
Okay,
thank you.
Sounds good.
Bye, guys. Bye.